Cowboy cried when his horse was bitten by a snake, until an Apache woman said, "I have a cure." The desert stretched far beyond the horizon, quiet and endless under the pale morning sun. Dust moved slowly across the dry ground as a lone cowboy rode along a narrow trail that few people used anymore. His coat was faded from years of travel, and his hat cast a long shadow over tired eyes that had seen too much. His horse walked steadily beneath him, strong and calm despite the heat. The animal was not just a tool for travel. It was his friend, his partner, and the only living soul that had stayed beside him through years of wandering. The cowboy spoke to the horse sometimes, quietly, as if sharing secrets with an old companion. He had not planned to be alone forever. Once, long ago, he had owned land and a small ranch near a green valley. But time had taken many things from him, leaving only memories and a restless heart that kept him moving forward. The wind carried the smell of dry grass as he guided the horse toward a canyon he remembered from years before. A small stream sometimes flowed there, hidden between rocks where shade protected water from the harsh sun. If luck stayed with him, he and the horse could rest before continuing the long journey north. The desert felt different that day, too quiet. Birds that normally circled high above were missing. Even the wind seemed slow and careful, as if waiting for something. The cowboy noticed but said nothing. Years of travel had taught him that the land often spoke without words. He simply stayed alert, scanning the ground ahead while allowing the horse to pick its own careful path. They reached the canyon just before evening. Shadows stretched long across the rocks, and a cool breeze rose from below. The cowboy dismounted slowly, stretching stiff muscles before leading the horse toward a small patch of grass near the stream. The horse lowered its head and began to drink. The cowboy filled his canteen and washed dust from his face. For a moment, peace returned. The soft sound of water and the fading heat of the sun made the world feel almost gentle again. Then everything changed. The horse jerked suddenly, letting out a sharp, frightened sound. Its leg kicked violently and it stumbled sideways. The cowboy turned instantly, hand reaching toward his belt out of instinct. A snake slipped away between stones, its body moving fast and silent. The cowboy's heart dropped. He rushed toward the horse and saw two small dark marks on its leg. The skin around the bite already began to swell. Fear rushed through him like a cold wave. "No, not you," he whispered. He knelt beside the animal, hands shaking slightly as he examined the wound. He had faced storms, fights, and danger many times, but this felt different. This was helplessness. He tore a piece of cloth from his shirt and tied it gently above the bite, trying to slow the spread of venom. His movements were careful but urgent. The horse breathed heavily, eyes wide with pain. The cowboy spoke softly, trying to calm it. He brushed its neck and whispered reassuring words, though doubt filled his own mind. The sun disappeared behind the canyon walls, leaving the sky painted in deep orange and purple. Darkness crept closer. He built a small fire quickly, hoping warmth and light might help keep fear away. The horse lay down slowly, something it rarely did unless tired or hurt. Seeing it on the ground broke something inside him. He had lost many things before, people he cared about. A home that once felt safe, but this horse had stayed through it all. The thought of losing it felt unbearable. Hours passed. The horse's breathing grew heavier. The cowboy tried everything he knew, cool water, pressure on the wound, quiet words, but nothing seemed enough. For the first time in years, tears filled his eyes. He sat beside the animal, staring into the fire. The desert night stretched around him, silent and vast. Stars appeared above like distant watchers. Footsteps interrupted the silence. Soft, steady, unafraid. The cowboy stood slowly, turning toward the sound. A figure approached from the shadows, moving with calm confidence. An Apache woman stepped into the firelight. Her eyes reflected the flames, calm and observant. She carried no weapon in her hands, only a small leather bag hanging at her side. The wind moved gently around her, lifting strands of dark hair. The cowboy remained silent, unsure whether to speak or reach for caution. Strangers in the desert could bring trouble. But something about her presence felt different, quiet strength rather than threat. She looked first at the horse. Without asking permission, she walked closer and knelt beside it. Her movements were slow and respectful, as if greeting an old friend rather than approaching a wounded animal. She studied the bite carefully, touching the swollen skin with gentle fingers. "Snake," she said calmly. "Strong venom." The cowboy nodded, voice tight. "Can you help?" She did not answer immediately. Instead, she closed her eyes for a moment as if listening to something beyond sound. Then she opened them again. "I have a cure," she said softly. Hope and doubt fought inside the cowboy. He had learned not to trust easily, but desperation pushed him forward. "What do you need?" he asked. She stood and looked toward the dark hills surrounding the canyon. "Plants that grow only under moonlight," she replied. "The land gives poison, but it also gives healing." Without waiting, she began walking toward a narrow path between rocks. The cowboy hesitated only a moment before following. The desert at night felt alive in a different way. Cool air replaced the heat, and distant sounds echoed across the open land. The woman moved confidently, stepping around stones and cactus as if guided by memory. She pointed out small plants hidden between rocks, collecting leaves and roots with careful hands. She explained quietly that healing was not only about medicine, but also about respect for the balance of life. The cowboy listened, surprised by the calm certainty in her voice. When they returned to the camp, she began preparing the cure immediately. She crushed herbs against a flat stone, mixing them with water until a thick paste formed. As she worked, she sang softly, a low melody that felt older than words. The cowboy watched silently, unsure whether to believe but unable to ignore the hope growing inside him. She applied the paste to the wound, covering it carefully. Then they waited. Time moved slowly. The fire crackled. The horse's breathing remained heavy, but gradually it seemed less strained. The woman sat quietly beside the animal, hands resting gently on its side. The cowboy sat across from her, studying her face in the firelight. He realized that the desert had brought him not just danger, but also something unexpected, a stranger who might change everything. And as the stars moved slowly across the sky, he began to feel that this night marked the beginning of a story far greater than a simple journey through the desert. The desert night felt calmer than before, but the cowboy's heart still carried heavy worry. He sat near the fire, watching every small movement of his horse. The Apache woman worked quietly beside the animal, her hands steady and gentle as she checked the wound again. The herbal paste covered the swollen area, and the smell of crushed plants filled the air. The cowboy did not understand everything she had done, but he noticed the horse's breathing had slowed slightly. That small change gave him hope. He looked toward the woman. She seemed completely focused, as if the rest of the world did not exist. The firelight reflected in her eyes, showing both strength and calm patience. "You knew this would happen?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "No one knows what the desert chooses," she replied, "but we learn to listen." Her voice was soft but carried confidence. The cowboy nodded slowly, respecting her words even if he did not fully understand them. They waited together in silence for some time. The stars above looked brighter than usual, spreading across the sky like scattered light. The canyon walls surrounded them, creating a feeling of protection from the endless open desert. After a while, the woman began humming again. The melody felt old, like a story passed through generations. The cowboy listened carefully, feeling something inside him relax for the first time since the bite happened. "What is that song?" he asked. "It is for healing," she answered, "not only for the body." The cowboy looked away toward the darkness. He knew she was speaking about more than the horse. As hours passed, the horse slowly lifted its head. Its eyes no longer looked wild with pain. Instead, they seemed tired but calmer. The cowboy's shoulders dropped in relief. He reached forward and gently touched the animal's neck. "You're strong," he whispered. The woman watched the moment quietly. She understood that the bond between them was deep, built through years of shared survival. "You care for him like family," she said. "He is family," the cowboy replied without hesitation. She nodded, understanding. The fire burned low, and dawn began to paint the horizon with soft light. The cool air slowly warmed as the sun rose. Birds returned to the sky, their distant calls breaking the silence. The woman stood and stretched slightly before checking the wound again. The swelling had stopped growing, and the skin looked less dark. "The cure works," she said calmly. The cowboy let out a breath he had been holding all night. Gratitude filled his voice. "You saved him." She shook her head gently. "The land saved him. I only listened." The cowboy thought about her words. He had always seen the desert as something to survive, not something to understand. Watching her work made him realize there were many ways to see the world. They shared a simple breakfast of dried food and water. The horse slowly stood, shaking its mane as if testing its strength. It moved carefully but did not fall. The cowboy smiled slightly for the first time since meeting her. "What is your name?" he asked. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "You may call me Tala," he nodded. "Thank you, Tala." She looked at him with curiosity. "And you?" He paused. Names carried memories. Finally, he gave a simple answer. "Just a traveler." She did not press further. As the morning continued, Tala spoke more about the land. She explained how certain plants grew only in hidden places and how animals moved according to patterns many people ignored. Her words carried deep respect for nature. The cowboy listened carefully. He realized he had survived the desert through strength and stubbornness, but she survived through understanding. After resting for some time, they prepared to leave the canyon. The cowboy packed his gear while Tala gathered her things. The horse walked slowly but showed signs of improving. Before they began moving, Tala suddenly stopped and looked toward the sky. The cowboy followed her gaze. Far above, a faint streak of light moved silently across the blue sky. It was too fast to be a bird and too smooth to be a falling star. "What is that?" he asked. She watched carefully. "Not from here," she said quietly. The cowboy felt a strange chill. He had heard stories of strange lights in the desert but never believed them. They began traveling together along the canyon edge. Tala moved with natural confidence, guiding them through safe paths. The cowboy found himself trusting her without fully realizing when that trust had formed. As they walked, she spoke about unusual events happening recently. People had seen lights at night, strange sounds echoing across empty land, and animals behaving differently. "Some say the sky visitors have returned," she said. The cowboy raised an eyebrow. "Sky visitors?" She nodded slowly. "Stories older than memory. Some believe they come to watch, others believe they come to learn." He did not know what to think. The desert had always been mysterious, but this sounded beyond anything he understood. They reached a ridge overlooking a wide valley. Below them, something unusual caught their attention. Half buried in sand lay a strange metallic object. Its surface reflected sunlight in a way no natural rock could. The cowboy felt curiosity mix with caution. "What do you think it is?" he asked. Tala stepped forward slowly, eyes focused. "Not made by human hands," she said. The air around the object felt different, almost electric. Small lights flickered across its smooth surface. The cowboy approached carefully, ready to pull back if danger appeared. As he stepped closer, the object made a soft sound, like a distant echo. A section opened silently, revealing shapes and symbols that glowed faintly. Both of them froze. The world they understood suddenly felt much larger. The cowboy realized that saving his horse had led him into something far greater than he expected. The desert had brought him not only a healer, but also a mystery that could change everything. Tala looked at him calmly. "Our paths crossed for a reason," she said. He nodded slowly, feeling that she might be right. Behind them, far on the horizon, dust began to rise, riders approaching quickly. Someone else was searching for this object. And danger was coming. The wind moved slowly across the ridge as the cowboy and Tala stood facing the strange metallic object. The sunlight reflected from its smooth surface, creating soft flashes of light that felt unnatural against the desert landscape. It did not look like anything built by human hands. No seams, no scratches, only a perfect shape half buried in sand as if the earth itself had tried to hide it. The cowboy felt both curiosity and unease. His hand rested near his belt out of habit, though he sensed that no weapon would help if this object was truly from beyond their world. Tala stepped closer first. Her movements were calm but careful. She watched the faint glowing lines moving slowly across the metal. They shifted like living patterns, changing color between soft blue and pale white. "It is awake," she said quietly. The cowboy frowned slightly. "Awake," she nodded. "It reacts to us." He hesitated but took another step forward. As soon as he moved closer, the object made a low humming sound. A small section opened smoothly, revealing a hollow interior filled with light. The cowboy took a sharp breath. Inside were shapes that looked like tools, but not tools he recognized. Thin panels floated slightly above their surfaces, glowing with symbols that moved slowly like flowing water. Tala watched carefully. "It is not broken," she said, "only waiting." Before the cowboy could respond, a sudden beam of light appeared above the object, forming a floating image. Stars filled the air between them, spinning slowly. The projection showed distant worlds, mountains that glowed, oceans shining with strange colors, and creatures moving across landscapes unlike anything on Earth. The cowboy stepped back, stunned. "What is this thing?" he whispered. Tala's eyes remained calm, but curiosity shone within them. "A traveler," she said. "Like you." The idea felt impossible, yet standing there, watching stars move in the air, the cowboy knew he could not deny what he saw. Suddenly, Tala turned sharply toward the horizon. The cowboy followed her gaze. Dust clouds rose in the distance, moving quickly toward them, riders, at least 6 or 7. "They are coming fast," the cowboy said, tension rising in his voice. Tala's expression grew serious. "They search for this. How do you know?" She did not answer directly. "The land speaks through signs, and these men do not move like travelers, they hunt." The cowboy studied the approaching figures. Even from far away, their movement looked purposeful and determined. He made a quick decision. "We need to hide this." Together, they began pushing sand and loose stones toward the object. The cowboy worked with urgency, using a blanket to drag dirt over the shining surface. Tala gathered branches and desert plants to cover remaining visible edges. The object dimmed slightly, as if understanding their intention. The humming sound softened. After several minutes, only a faint outline remained visible, blending with the surrounding terrain. They moved behind nearby rocks just as the riders reached the ridge. The group stopped near where the object had been. Their clothing looked rough, their movements sharp and restless. One man dismounted and began scanning the ground carefully. The cowboy held his breath. "They know it is here," he whispered. Tala nodded silently. The riders spoke among themselves, their voices low but tense. One of them pointed toward the ground, noticing disturbed sand. The cowboy realized they would not leave easily. He looked toward Tala. "We need to distract them." She studied the land quickly, then pointed toward a narrow path leading deeper into the canyon. "If they follow a false trail, they will lose time." The cowboy understood immediately. Moving slowly and carefully, he crept around the rocks, creating footprints leading away from the hidden object. He made sure the marks looked natural, like someone trying to escape quickly. Then he returned quietly to Tala. Moments later, one of the riders spotted the false trail. The group quickly followed it, disappearing into the canyon. The cowboy let out a slow breath. "That should slow them down." Tala watched silently for a moment before turning back toward the hidden object. As they uncovered it again, the lights on its surface glowed brighter. The projection returned, showing stars once more. This time, a symbol appeared, a shape like a circle surrounded by smaller lights. The cowboy felt a strange warmth in his chest. "It feels like it's talking," he said. Tala stepped closer, studying the symbol carefully. "Not speaking with words," she said, "but sending a message." The air vibrated softly. A beam of light pointed toward the sky briefly before fading. "Maybe it is calling someone," the cowboy said. She nodded slowly. "Or someone already knows where it is." They exchanged a glance, realizing that staying here might bring more danger. The horse moved closer to them, calmer now, its strength slowly returning. The cowboy stroked its neck gently, feeling gratitude for its survival. "We cannot stay long," he said. Tala agreed. "But we must protect it until its journey ends." The cowboy looked at her carefully. "Why help it?" She smiled faintly. "Because it came far from home. And no traveler should be alone." Her words touched something deep inside him. They decided to wait until sunset, watching the horizon carefully for the rider's return. Time passed slowly, filled with quiet tension. The desert felt alive again, wind whispering across stones. As the sky turned gold, a distant sound reached them. A low hum. Both looked upward. Far above, a small light appeared, moving silently across the sky. It grew brighter as it approached, descending slowly. The cowboy felt awe mixed with fear. "Is that?" he began. "Yes," Tala said softly. The object responded instantly, glowing brighter than before. The symbol appeared again, larger this time. The cowboy realized that the mystery they had discovered was reaching its conclusion, but danger still remained. Far behind them, dust rose again. The riders were returning, and this time they were moving faster. The desert sky glowed deep gold as the strange light moved closer from above. The cowboy stood beside Tala and his horse, watching silently as the shining object in the sand began to glow brighter. A soft humming sound filled the air, steady and calm like a distant heartbeat. Far behind them, dust rose again. The riders were coming back. The cowboy's jaw tightened. He could see their shapes growing clearer against the horizon. They had realized the false trail and returned faster than expected. "We don't have much time," he said quietly. Tala nodded, her eyes still fixed on the sky. The descending light grew larger, moving slowly but with purpose. It did not fall like a star. It floated controlled and silent. The metallic object responded immediately. Lines of light moved across its surface, forming patterns that shifted like living symbols. The air around it felt warmer, charged with unseen energy. "They are connected," Tala said softly. The cowboy stepped closer to his horse, resting a hand on its neck. The animal stood strong now, no longer weak from the snake bite. Its breathing was steady, its eyes clear. "You came back from the edge," he whispered to the horse. "Guess we both did." The sound of approaching riders grew louder. Hooves struck the ground with urgency. The cowboy turned toward the ridge, watching as the group appeared again. Their expressions looked determined, almost desperate. One of them pointed toward the glowing object, shouting something to the others. "They will not stop," the cowboy said. Tala stepped beside him. "Then we must stand firm." The cowboy thought about everything that had happened since the snake bite. The fear, the healing, the discovery of something beyond human understanding. He had started this journey alone, carrying heavy memories and quiet pain. Now he stood beside someone who had shown him a different way to see the world. He felt stronger. The riders dismounted quickly, spreading out as they approached. Their eyes stayed fixed on the glowing object, ignoring the beauty of the desert around them. One man stepped forward. "Move away from it," he called out. The cowboy remained calm. "It doesn't belong to you." The man laughed shortly. "Everything belongs to whoever is strong enough to take it." Tala watched silently, her posture calm but unyielding. Above them, the descending light grew brighter. A shape began to form, a smooth craft unlike any human machine. It made no loud noise, only a gentle hum that felt peaceful rather than threatening. The riders looked up briefly, confusion crossing their faces. "What is that?" one of them muttered. The cowboy felt a strange confidence rise inside him. He knew now that the object was not meant to be taken or controlled. It had its own purpose. The leader of the riders stepped closer, reaching toward the glowing device. Before his hand could touch it, a soft wave of light pushed him back gently but firmly. He stumbled, shocked. The cowboy watched carefully. The device was protecting itself. The sky craft descended slowly until it hovered above the ground. A beam of soft light connected it to the metallic object, lifting it gently from the sand. The glowing lines on its surface pulsed faster, as if alive. The riders shouted, some raising their weapons, but nothing happened when they tried to approach. Invisible energy kept them at a distance without causing harm. Tala watched with calm understanding. "It goes home," she said. The cowboy nodded slowly. The object rose into the air, carried by the beam of light. For a moment, everything felt still. Even the wind seemed to pause. A symbol appeared in the air between them, a circle surrounded by smaller lights glowing softly. The cowboy felt warmth spread through him, like silent gratitude. Then the craft moved upward, disappearing into the sky as smoothly as it had arrived. The light faded. The desert returned to normal. The riders stood in stunned silence, their goal gone. Frustration filled their faces, but they had nothing left to take. One by one, they turned away, leaving without another word. The cowboy watched them disappear into the distance. Only after they were gone did he finally relax. The desert felt peaceful again. He turned toward Tala. "Looks like your traveler found its way," she smiled gently. "Every journey has an end, and every ending begins something new." They stood quietly for a while, watching the empty sky. The cowboy felt different. Something inside him had shifted. For years, he had carried sadness and isolation, believing he was meant to wander alone. But the desert had given him more than survival. It had given him connection. He looked at Tala. "Where will you go now?" She glanced toward the distant hills. "Where the land calls," she answered simply. He nodded, understanding that her path was tied to the desert itself. They prepared to leave the ridge together, walking slowly back toward the canyon. The horse moved with strong steps, fully recovered. The cowboy felt deep gratitude every time he looked at it. At the edge of the canyon, Tala stopped. "This is where our paths separate," she said softly. The cowboy felt a quiet sadness but also peace. "Some people were meant to walk beside you only for a certain part of the journey." "You saved more than my horse," he said. She looked at him with kind eyes. "You were ready to be saved." He thought about her words as the wind moved gently around them. They said goodbye without many words. She turned and walked toward the hills, her figure slowly becoming smaller against the vast desert landscape. The cowboy watched until she disappeared. Then he mounted his horse and looked toward the open trail ahead. For the first time in years, he did not feel lost. The journey continued, but now it carried purpose instead of loneliness. As he rode forward, the desert wind followed him, carrying the memory of healing, mystery, and the understanding that sometimes the greatest cures were not only for the body, but for the heart.